Which house do you have your moon in? In astrology, the moon governs your physical body, and it also governs your emotions and what's going on in that beautiful little mind of yours. If the moon is in your first house, usually you have a change in the way that you make money or in your occupation a couple of times in your life. And I don't just mean like a part-time job when you're a kid and then finally getting your main career. I mean like literally changing your career and your destiny multiple times. If the moon is in a fixed sign in the first house, I've noted that a lot of people seem to have some sort of public recognition in terms of their career. In general, this is a beautiful placement for the moon to be in. Of course, it depends on the aspects, but with the moon in the first house, you can always expect to have a beautiful social life, for a lot of people to admire you, like the physical body. Usually these people look beautiful as well, and they also have a stunning aura, as well as the emotion really comes out in the way that they portray themselves. If the moon is in your second house, then you're going to gain money through public affairs. So you're always going to make money through multiple people. It could be from a relationship, like your partner may make more money than you and you gain money from them. Sometimes an inheritance can be shown in this placement too, even though the inheritance shows in the 8th house. But because the moon also governs the mother, if the moon is in the second house, you may make a lot of money from your mom. You may work for your mom, or when she passes, you may make a lot of money from her as well. Nonetheless, moon in the second house is all about security and money in your pocket. So if your moon's in your second house, you're gonna have a pretty blessed life in terms of wealth and monetary possessions. Moon in the third house. If your moon is in the third house, you desire to want to have public recognition, but it may not happen. Depends on the other aspects in the chart, but the third house governs a lot of our desires and what really motivates us to move forward in life. These people seem to be extremely intelligent. They have like an active mind. They're very curious about life. They want to learn a lot about literally everything. An absolutely great placement for writers, for speakers, for people that want to dive into literature, anything that has to do with writing and speaking, communication, podcasting. Like if you want to do a podcast, your moon is in the third house. If you have good aspects with it, it could very much be a suitable career for you. And the last one is a blessing towards like mathematics, numbers, and like an intelligence within the field of science and stuff like that. So it's just a very analytical mind, essentially. Moon in the fourth house always means some sort of gain through family matters. So if your family has a family business, you're most likely going to work within the business, or you will gain money through the family in some way, in some sorts. Maybe you were born into a family with a lot of wealth. There's a very interesting dynamic here as well, where the child born with the moon in the fourth house sometimes has parents that are very popular, or parents that were popular in high school, or just like well-known parents. It's also a great sign to sell real estate or to have multiple homes if that's something that you're interested in. Moon in the fifth house, these people are extremely amazing with children and amusement parks. I just wanted to throw that in there. But yes, the fifth house actually does have a lot to do with playing, with games, with being creative. So usually these people are extremely creative. They love to dive deep into anything that allows them to be free. So that's why it has a lot to do with being a children, can't even speak. Has a lot to do with being a child, and being a child has a lot to do with creativity, because children are so creative. The ego is still developing, so they don't have this analytical side of them that puts them away from being creative, and that's extremely important. And I think if your moon's there, you can be a really, really good teacher, or somebody who can really handle the emotions of children. Moon in the sixth house. The sixth house in old ancient astrology is the house of slaves, is the house of unemployment, it's the house of sickness and illness. Now don't worry, I don't want you guys to get all nervous and stuff. Now you may have been born maybe through a C-section, like me. My moon's on the sixth house, but it could indicate somebody who has to struggle with their health growing up, or somebody who wants to dive deeper in their health. And this is kind of what I call like applied astrology. Like I tried to teach people where even though a placement is in a bad house, yes, it could manifest as something bad, but there's there is this ability for you to turn that into greatness. For people that have this placement, your soul knew that it had to deal with this coming into this life, So a big part of you having to deal with your health, let's say, would mean that you probably have to heal yourself so that you can heal other people. The sixth house is the house that Virgo governs as well. And so it's the house where you may find that you're very attracted to pets and you're attracted to herbs and remedies and healing other individuals and being of service to people. So really take that as a prideful thing and use it to elevate the collective consciousness. Moon in the seventh house is usually harmonious for marriage. It depends on the aspects that are coming to the moon in the seventh house, but generally speaking, it usually is pretty well in terms of marriage, means that you're probably going to have a fruitful marriage. You may also be good at making sales or just overall having one-to-one relationships because the seventh house is the house of consultations. Moon in the eighth house is where you will actually gain the most inheritance, and you will always gain money or some sort of material possession from other people. If you have a lot of placements here in general, you'll notice that you grew up always getting money from your grandparents, or your parents always gave you money. Like the eighth house really does give this energy of people giving you things that aren't yours, especially money and inheritance. It's also really good for investing in stocks or investing in anything. It's all about investments and long-term planning in terms of the eighth house. If there aren't a lot of aspects to the moon, you may just be really interested in the occult and mysticism because the eighth house has a lot to do with sex, transformation, death, and rebirth. Moon in the ninth house. These people are extremely intelligent. They're very curious about life. They're usually philosophers or psychologists or astrologers or really anything that has to do with the meaning of life. These people always want to learn something new, and they're also always on the go. These people would love to travel and just like hop from house to house all over the world. This is one of the placements where you can find people who are extremely psychic, people who are very dreamy, people who have a lot of intense dreams, because the ninth house is the house of God. So with the moon being placed there, you have this interesting dynamic or connection from earth to the skies and the heavens. So you're a medium. You're the person in the middle that connects the heavens to the people here on earth. Moon in the 10th house usually brings some sort of great thing for the person in terms of their career and legacy. If the moon is in the 10th house, your career and legacy can be very much connected to the way that you express your emotions, the way that you show people your authenticity. Now it depends on what sign it's in, but whenever the luminary is in the 10th house, you can expect for people to have a pretty good career. Sometimes fame can come out of this as well. Moon in the 11th house is a person that has so many friends of different sorts, different ethnicities. There's somebody who is extremely mutable and will succeed in life through their friends. Extremely popular person. These people seem to just carry this abundance with them, like this overarching feeling that no matter who they're with, they're always going to love and enjoy them. Now, again, I talked about the 10th house before being a house where, it's about career legacy and people being somewhat popular or gaining fame. But the 11th house has a lot to do with fame. And I think a lot of people don't talk about that. But the 11th house has a lot to do with you being able to express yourself and be extremely well known in the public. Moon in the 12th house. Now, the 12th house is one of the really negative houses, like the 6th. I spoke about the 6th before, so listen to it because I turned the bad into the good. And with the 12th house is the house of enemies, the house of death, the house of stealing and imprisonment. But it's also the house of occultism and being extremely spiritual and being some sort of spiritual healer or teacher. A lot of people with 12th house energy, they may have a rough life in the beginning, but if they are being protected and if they're really always keeping their heads up, they seem to be a very strong spiritual healer as they get older. So if you have a lot of 12th house placements, or if your moon's in the 12th house and you're wondering, why isn't life working for me? Look into some things into the occult, look into anything that has to do with spirituality, and just take a deep dive into it, because you'll probably find that you really like it, and you'll find that people will automatically be attracted to what you have to say, and it could be a very possible career for you. Like always, love, peace, and light.